All right, good evening, everyone. I'll call this regularly scheduled meeting in Bridgewater Town Council to order. Happy New Year. This is our first council meeting back. So bear with me as I try to get back into the routine of how to run a meeting. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, motion to approve the agenda is circulated. Councillor Newell, seconded by Councillor Wynot. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Before we go any further, I will, as always, acknowledge that the town of Bridgewater is located in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and it is our privilege to be here. Any announcements from members of council? Anything coming up? I know we have stuff in February coming up, but we'll talk about that as we get closer to February. Maybe what I'll do is I'll note that, excuse me, that I have a cough, but also later on our agenda we have a presentation on the 2026-27 capital budget, but this is not the time where we're going to be voting on that. That happens later in March, so there will be a number of other budget, operational and capital budget meetings that the public between now and then are free to email questions or speak to us if we do when we do our Talk Bridgewater session around the budget, or multiple meetings where the public could come and ask questions. So budget season is generally February, March, so I just don't want anyone to think that because it's on the agenda tonight that that's their only chance. We still have quite a ways to go before we finalize that. Any other announcements? Okay, are there any members of the public that wish to address council on any matters? Anything? If you want to come down and just introduce yourself? We know who you are, but the thousands of people watching on TV may not.
Thank you. I'm Debbie Dory. I am the owner of Jack's Burgers and Shakes, located at 668 King Street. I am also an active member of the Downtown Bridgewater Business Committee, and I'm appearing here today as we start the new year with hopes that the council will look into the immediate shutdown of the John Howard Society and Cedar Place. 2 years in February, we have been dealing with the situations. It's been a strain on our community. It's been a strain on our finances, our EMS systems, and a whole lot of other things. And I am asking council to please go forward and shut that down and release 641 back into the market so we can continue to revitalize. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you to all the members of the Downtown Committee. We've had a lot of meetings on this topic. A lot of businesses have given hours of their time to discuss this issue, share their stories, the impact of this facility on their business. We've been pretty clear that it's unacceptable what's happening. We've worked as much as we can with the John Howard Society, and we will continue to advocate on behalf of the residents and the commercial business owners in the downtown to get this rectified. So we hear you, and we will continue to hear you and try to get this resolved. So, thank you. Any other members of the public that wish to speak to council? Okay. We have the minutes of November 24th, the regular council meeting in your agenda package. Any errors or omissions with those? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes as circulated? Councillor Frazier, yep. Seconded by Deputy Mayor McDonald. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. We have two pieces of correspondence for information. The first is a letter from the Bridgewater branch of the Souls Harbor Rescue Mission, located on Pleasant Street, noting some concerns with the changes in the procedures. So when we receive correspondence from members of the public or organizations addressed to council, mayor or council, that these are generally brought forward to a public meeting. There's not much we can do to force an outside organization to change any practices, but I will note that I believe since this letter was sent, some of the changes that they've asked for have been implemented. So I believe the one item where their hours were changed from 3 back to 2 o'clock, they are now going back to 3 o'clock. So that did address some. So that was, I think, good news for the volunteers that are there. So I don't know if council has any questions or needs any more information from staff, but that, this letter is out here for us to just receive. Yeah, we don't really take questions from the public, sorry. If you wanted to like email us, if you had a question, you could email myself or council and we can get back to you. Yeah, so any other comments from council? No? The next item is the town profile and financial indicators final report from 2023, 2024. I don't know if we don't have a report from staff on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll invite if you have any questions for the Director of Finance, I will just say that, as you can see from the date on the report, it's from 23-24, so it's stale dated information already. It does, if you compare it to other towns, you can get some sense of relativity from a couple of years ago, but, the information is somewhat dated, so it's very much a lagging indicator of our performance.
And it's not because we're late giving it to you. It's just fresh off the presses. There are just a couple of things that I'll mention. The main one being on pages unnumbered. Financial, the house that we've all seen in the past. That's kind of the summary of everything. And so on that page, we have two yellow indicators. Everything else is green, which is good. We've had reds in the past on things. So the undepreciated assets were at 48.7. 50% is good. Under 50% is yellow, so we're like just there. We're going to talk about the capital budget later. And so basically that's saying, our assets are depreciated more than 50% of their original cost. This is going to reverse quickly in the next few years, but then the debt service ratio will no longer be green. So this is just that point in time as of March 31st, 2024. So it's that specific point in time, and these numbers are always changing. As soon as this year was over, a whole set of new numbers. And often when I'm talking about the financial statements, I've already calculated these and bring anything of concern to your attention. But those, that's the main one that we know will move, but it's going to change some of the other things going forward. There's lots of information in here on population, statistics, age brackets of our residents and things like that from census information and so on. But for the most part, on the latter pages, it actually shows you how each of those items in the house are calculated and kind of where we are. So we're often not close to the yellow line. We're usually well in the green on those. So that's really, if anybody has any specific questions, I'm happy to answer those, but that's just a little summary of what's in there.
I don't know if Councilor Caldwell?
I know that councilors' expenses are posted routinely. The report notes that there was an issue with that back in 2024. Have we looked into that?
No, I have not.
Because it is, it's old.
Yes. Yep. And they are posted quarterly,
Yeah,
as well as in our annual financial statements.
yeah.
So we have them, that information is widely available in a number of different documents.
Yeah, I'm left to think it was an error, but
To me, I looked at it as an error by the province, because when I went on the town's website, you can clearly see every quarter they are posted, and the only time it's missing something is when there was nothing to report, but it's noted that there was nothing to report.
And primarily hospitality is nothing
That's where
to
it's at,
report.
right, yeah.
Yes.
So they're all there, so, yeah, I was surprised, because it is readily available.
Yep.
So I'm talking that up to an error by the province,
yeah.
in my least favorite report by the province. Councilor Newell?
I've got two questions, but I think referring to the publishing documents, do we publish all the meeting minutes for all of our committees, or does that done based on committee? How do we do that?
We're supposed to,
Okay.
yeah, for council committees, yeah.
Yeah, so that was flagged as we kind of went through some question from someone today.
that was just
and
a
noticed that
resident question, so.
some of them are not up to date, so
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah, we
something
we
that
may have some work to do, so yes,
Yeah, okay.
acknowledge that, but yeah, that's the intent, that all council minutes and all committee meetings are published. Committees of council should be published.
So like, and I guess, so let's say I serve on the South Shore Housing Action Coalition, they're not necessarily a committee of council, so I assume we can't
Correct.
require them. So I'm just understanding that difference. Okay. If I may, so I think it's page 27, it talks about uncollected tax rate, uncollected taxes. I know that document's not, not current, but I guess, have we noticed, or you believe we may notice an increase in uncollected taxes given, say, increased cost of living pressure?
We have typically, we had a small, I came in 2020. Shortly after that, we had a commercial account that was a number of years overdue, but really we haven't had significant issues. And even during COVID, when we had a policy in place to give people more time to spread their tax payments, I think one resident took advantage of that program. So we typically have collection issues in timeliness of people paying, but we typically don't have a big problem with it because we put properties up for tax sale. We haven't had a tax sale in a couple of years, which is also an example of the fact that we're putting extreme effort in. Staff make payment arrangements, they call, they try to find them any which way they can to make sure the taxes are paid so we don't have to put them up for tax sale. So we've managed to avoid that, which I think is a good sign that we're not in that position where some of the more rural municipalities have long lists of tax sale properties. We haven't had to have a sale.
So a combination of, I'd say, staff effort and, of course, people wanting to protect their primary asset are leading to
Yes.
people paying their taxes.
Yes, water bills went out over the between Christmas and New Year's, and people are here on January 2nd to pay the water bills, right? We have really great residents who are diligent about paying those bills, and the ones that aren't, we try to stay on top of.
Great, thank
Yep.
you.
Great, thanks, good questions. Other questions? No? I'll condense my annual rant about this report. I find it frustrating. It is very much a lagging indicator, missing a whole bunch of context. I get frustrated when it compares towns or urban municipalities with rural municipalities because it is apples and fire trucks. They're not even close to the same thing. Towns have to pay 100% for their roads and infrastructure, whereas rural municipalities, the province pays for their roads and they have little to no infrastructure. And so when you talk about the residential tax effort, it's pitting us against municipalities that have tens of millions of dollars in reserves because they have no ability to spend the grants that they're given because they don't have any projects that fit those grants. So I find these indicators are a bit misleading. My favorite one is we were penalized in 2015 when we had Snowmageddon because we didn't have enough money in our snow plowing budget, which nobody did in this province. And then when it didn't snow very much for the following years, we were told we had too much in our snow plowing budget. It's just all over the place. And again, it's missing a lot of context. It doesn't take into account the assessment cap. Over 70% of properties in the province are capped, which creates an artificially high tax rate across the province. So again, none of this is noted in the report, so there's a lot of context missing. So that's my rant. And if you're looking for a continuation of that, you can probably tune into Yarmouth's council meeting, as Mayor Mood will probably say something a little bit more eloquently along the same lines. So, yeah, so that's that. Down to business arising, unfinished business. We have the Hemlock Willie Adelgid project report update.
Thank you. I have with me this evening Hunter and Carol, who are members of our Hemlock Strike Team, because if you have specific detailed questions, I am not the expert to respond. Thank you very much. This is since November 2023, when Council first gave us direction to pursue a grant to help us address the hemlock woolly adelgid invasive species that had been discovered in our parks. Staff received a grant and have been diligently working to try to take action and slow the impact of hemlock. We reported back to council at the end of the 2024 season, so this is meant to be the report back at the end of the 2025 active treatment season. We're just a slightly delayed coming to you. So we have a little presentation for you. This is on. There we go. So Hunter and Carol are going to share some hemlock woolly adelgid so you can see it. They brought a sample for you. It won't spread in here. And Hunter is going to explain what exactly this invasive species is. You're going to have to speak into the mic, though.
Hey everyone. So hemlock woolly adelgid, HWA, is a small aphid-like insect. It's only about 3 millimeters long, and it is it's practically impossible to see by the naked eye. The big issue with it is that there's no natural predators in Nova Scotia right now, so we are using pesticides to kind of stop their spread as much as we can. Carol's going to quickly go over some of their...
Yeah, so when we're talking about HWA and what it's actually doing to the hemlock trees, the hemlock woolly adelgid attaches onto the base of the hemlock needles themselves. And what they do is they suck all of the nutrients and the water out of the tree. So this harms the growth of the trees themselves, and over time it does lead to eventual death in the hemlock trees. So this can happen in as little as 4 to 7 years. The tree can fully die off from this invasive insect.
So when we came to you in 2023, we had a pretty active, do we want to take action or else the trees will die, because it does have a 90 to 95% mortality rate, so there's quite a bit of certainty around the future. So we have been, our original plan was only 4 parks, but we have managed to inventory and treat nearly all the hemlocks in all the parks, which is very exciting. Through each summer, we've assembled a strike team. This year, our strike team was a little bit larger, so just a little snapshot of who was on there. But we have been very successful the last 2 summers in receiving wage subsidy grants for summer positions, so for a co-op position, for a clean leadership position, as well as for the past 2 years, we've received a 6-month wage subsidy grant through the Green Jobs, federal Green Jobs, which Hunter had last year, and Carol is our Green Jobs intern this year. Also, our coordinator, Nikita, departed the project in late September to move on to a new role. So tree assessment, they went into each and every park predominantly through 2024 to identify all of the hemlock, assess how badly infested the trees are, and then started treatment. If you'll recall, in 2024, it was predominantly Glen Allen Park and Woodland Gardens. So therefore, in 2025, this past summer, we've been working on treating all of the other parks. Hunter is going to give a bit of more detail on Riverview Park, however, because that is a special case. It is owned by the province, it is leased by the town, and it is the site that the province released Larry, the bug, that is the known natural predator of hemlock.
Yeah, so back in 2024, when the project was originally starting up, Nick and I reached out to the province to get confirmation that we could continue with our pesticide treatments, when they originally told her, no, not at all, we can't go in there. And then later at the early start of this year, they told us that we were allowed to go in there, but with a 150-meter buffer around where they released their copious feed. And then when we went back to them because their boundary was just slightly off, and then it was revealed that they also want us to add a 100-meter buffer off of the river due to the beetle spreading through the river, as well as wind and birds and everything else. So with this, it kind of removed a large portion of the trees within the park that we're allowed to treat, bringing total from 715 of the previously marked trees down to 408 for trees that are going to be treated for next year.
So this buffer zone is needed for them to complete the study of how successful is the bug, the other bug, Larry. How successful is Larry in actually consuming the hemlock woolly adelgid? So they just needed a larger buffer zone, which greatly, as Hunter just said, greatly reduced the available trees that we could treat to try to protect. Okay. So Carol's just going to give a little bit of detail around how this summer interrupted the completion of the project.
Yeah, so we started doing the pesticide treatments in town in August of 2024, and we've been doing this with two different types of pesticides. So one is called Zytec. We use this as a basal bark spray that goes directly onto the tree. And the other one is Imajet, and this is an injection that we use around waterways to limit any exposure to non-target species. And yeah, we have some pictures up there. The one on the right you can see is our injection system in action. So that's actually at the Brookside Cemetery where we did some treatments this summer. And on the left is one of our summer staff all dressed in her personal protective equipment for the basal bark spray. So yeah, for this year when we were doing pesticide treatments, we finished treatments in quite a lot of our parks, including Glen Allen Park, Woodland Gardens, as well as some of the smaller parks such as Windburn, Mayfair Drive, Brookside Cemetery, Mariners Landing, and the Glen Allen Playground. We started treatments as well in the LaHave Ball Fields and Active Generations Park, as well as along the Centennial Trail. But that's when we got the news about the woods bans happening across the province in the summer, and this was from the extreme drought conditions that we were experiencing everywhere in Nova Scotia. So it was province-wide shutdown of the pesticide treatments. It wasn't just for town of Bridgewater, it was everybody in the province decided to halt because the pesticide couldn't get taken up the tree because of the drought conditions. So we didn't want to do more harm than good, so everybody stopped and decided to continue this following spring. So we're hoping to finish the treatments in our remaining parks in the spring. And we do have a table on the next slide that kind of shows a breakdown of how many trees are in each of our parks, as well as how many were treated with the different pesticides, so for the basal bark spray and the injection. And the parks that we have left to treat are the ones with the asterisks next to it, so the Trail, Generation Active, and LaHave Ball Fields. And we have to complete treatment in Riverview Park, Kinsman Athletic Field, and the King Street Green area. Yeah.
So in addition to the broader community engagement events that are shown in this slide, staff went door to door to all the adjacent neighbors prior to starting any of the treatment in the town's parks. So not only did they do the events, at the farmers market and engaging with the O2 class at Parkview, but they also went door to door with those closest to the town's parks with existing hemlock trees. So really trying to get the word out and also answer any questions that the public had regarding pesticide treatment, because there are often been concerns. Staff have been engaged in municipal and provincial working groups, because we're not the only community trying to address and prevent or slow down the spread of hemlock woolly adelgid. So there's Kemptville and Truro and Halifax and many other communities that they've been working with. So we quietly deployed these boot brush stations just as Nikita departed the project, but they were perhaps received with a little bit of noise and a lot of questions. These are boot brush stations. Oh wait, this is everybody having fun with engagement. Sorry, wasn't paying attention to which slide. I'm looking at my notes for the next slide. Okay, boot brush stations. So these are where you can use these brushes to wipe your feet after walking through the parks. They cost $500 per station, total cost, fully funded by the project to be deployed. And the goal of these is to help reduce the spread by removing, there's a whole protocol that staff undertake after they've gone into the woods to do inventory work or to do pesticide treatment. And so this is just one thing that people can do to try to brush off hemlock, especially if you're walking in one of our parks that is known to have hemlock woolly adelgid, and perhaps you own a woodlot somewhere else that doesn't have hemlock woolly adelgid yet. You can be the person that brings that. And again, individuals can only do, it's just a small part, because we can't control what the wind is doing, what wild animals are doing, any of those sorts of things. But it's just a small step that we can take. Also meant to increase awareness of this invasive species and what people can do. But it's really sort of providing that what individual and community can do to address this invasive species, knowing that it's just one small part. and it's limited in its ability to be, it's not effective in and of itself. It's not one solution, it is part of a broader solution. And just quickly, we have a slide just to talk about, we have been providing service and support to the District of Lunenburg. We came to council, they approached us, you approved that we entered into a service contract with them because we have it's a specialized knowledge set. And they were wanting to assess at first just it was, do you want to check out these two parks? And then it sort of grew as we began to see the level of infestation in some of MODL's parks. So if you can see there, the scale that the District of Lunenburg is going to have is a little bit larger than ours. We have 3,235 total hemlock trees, and this is closer to 4,500, almost 5,000. And so the agreement is until the end of this fiscal year. We don't have a plan for what goes beyond into the next fiscal year. And again, it's a service agreement, so they're paying for our services entirely. So finally, the remaining work is to sort of figure out the next steps, wrap up the project commitments. We did receive word from our funders that we can continue the work into the next treatment season to wrap up that last work. So all of that will come forward through the budget process with you, but they are allowing us to extend the contract so that we can complete what we set out to complete. As part of that will be a so now what? You know, we've done this initial treatment. How do we monitor and what do we do next? If you probably don't recall, I had to look it up, but in 2023 when we came, we had a much higher estimate of how many trees we thought we had. But the estimate to remove a dead tree, a large mature dead tree, was at that time in 2023 about $2,500 to $5,000. So at that point, based on a per hectare estimate of how many hemlock we thought we had in town, the estimate was like $43 million. It's not that large, but $8 to $10 million to remove the dead trees because we didn't do anything is still a significant price tag that's not in our capital budget or our operating budget. So what we've done here, we need to monitor to see exactly and make a plan for what we go from here. So that's the final piece of the puzzle from our project side. And that is it.
And
Questions?
questions from Councillor Caldwell?
So the treatments are not permanent. How long should the treatments
So the treatments
last?
last about 5 years,
Okay.
and then after that they'll have to be redone. But what the hopes of that is, as treatments are redone, the Leucopius beetle will continue to spread and eventually be able to keep the populations at a neutral.
So the plan was for Larry to spread from where it currently is, not for it to be like manually
Yeah.
placed into areas, really?
I like how you kind of lowered your voice when you said that. Manually.
Yeah, so they plop it in one part, and then they're hoping as the years go on, they'll kind of spread across the province as they add more and more manual spots as well.
Okay, so the study, I guess, is see that they're spreading and how
Yeah.
far they're going in a certain
Yeah,
amount of
there's
time? Okay.
Spreading, making sure they can survive our winters, our very
Yeah.
mild winters, except some weeks this year, and basically just that.
Ah, okay, good.
Do we know if the province, so that's encouraging that Larry will spread and it's not going to stop at private property and move around to public, like, I get that, but do we know if the province has a handle on, like, we know how many trees we have in public land, but we're not inoculating private property, so, like, I'm worried that there's millions or more, tens of millions of hemlock on private land that these owners are not aware, have no options, and great that we saved 3,500 trees on town property, but we lose thousands more on private property. Like, do we know if the province has a plan to help private woodlot owners, for example?
So, with private, it's such a touchy subject. It's kind of, we can do as much as we can with our outreach, teaching people about it. There are a couple private organizations that do HWA treatments,
Okay.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but they're kind of the only, and also a property owner can just go and get a treatment, like pesticide application, like certificate, and do it at their own. It's just a little expensive, right? Especially with the tariffs from the US, because all the pesticides are from the States right now.
Okay. Okay, so we have to continue to build awareness then
We do.
for private landowners, especially woodlot owners. So
Yeah,
I
and
hope the
that's-
province is doing that.
The province is doing some of that, and that's also where there's work happening regionally, so that's part of how this contract with MODL sort of arose. What are you doing? Oh, that, I think we probably need, you know, like there was that, what if you have it, then we probably have it. And so now there's other municipalities that are going, if you now have it, we probably have it. It's been discovered as far as Truro. It's in Victoria Park in Truro, and I can't even imagine how Truro is going to make a plan to handle Victoria Park. Beautiful, majestic, and enormous hemlock trees there. So it is something, so that's what these municipal and provincial working groups, and there's an acronym that I can't remember, NSSSNT. Right, there's another one. There are a variety of working groups that are trying to support each other, take action, learn from each other, and spread awareness, do what they can on the lands that they are in control of, and really encourage private property owners to do what they can.
Other questions from council? No? Okay, thank you for the update. Look forward to spring weather being more cooperative so we can continue on.
We can take the samples back as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know why they're stuck up here. It's like, don't open those bags, Mark. Thank you. Down to item 10.2, which is the next steps for integration and recreation and museum staff and operations. I think,
That's right.
is that you or is that
Yeah,
Kara? Or is
it's
it both of
me.
you?
Kara's here to support and answer any questions. Yes, I think this is actually Kara's first meeting of council in her new role as manager of Rec and Culture. So in 2023, council gave direction to consider rebranding the museum to reflect a broader mandate, serving community and providing cultural and recreation services. And then that led to council establishing rebranding of the museum and the dissolution of the Museum Commission and the integration of Rec and Culture services as a strategic priority in its 2024-25 fiscal year. So in 2024, council approved restructuring of the staffing. So bringing those two staffing groups together, moving it into the Community Development Department, ultimately reporting under the manager of Rec and Culture, reporting to myself as director. And then in 2025, the Museum Commission was dissolved, officially dissolved by an act of the provincial legislature, and council adopted new terms of reference to establish the Arts, Culture, and Museums Advisory Committee of Council, reflecting that broader mandate. There's already a Parks, Recreation, and Active Transportation Advisory Committee of Council, sort of, if you're thinking culture and rec. And to ensure that staff and the advisory committee are moving the integration of rec and cultural services programming in the direction council wishes to see, we're here tonight seeking some direction from council on the level of engagement that you believe is required. And that's really required for the outcome of helping us to know, like having a clear mandate on the stories to direct the collection of the museum, on the range of opportunities that staff would work to provide residents with for recreation and cultural activities. And so it will really sort of set the team up for success in providing for the wants and needs of community instead of just that guesswork. But we're all, I mean, we're doing it through smaller piece, but we have not had focused consultation on recreation or cultural museum services in many years. And in fact, the last known, in my memory, engagement on recreation service beyond, evaluations of programs and, did you enjoy this or how was that, was in 2020 with Rec 2.0 and the Municipal Physical Activity Strategy and the survey around physical activity that was carried out by the province. So there's, and I think the museum, under the Museum Commission, did some engagement, but not through the direction of council. And so there's really sort of three options and a range of options where it could be very So I should open that up to exactly the limited consultation, where it's really the advisory committee and council, or a more focused consultation that would include the broader core partnerships like the Friends of the Des Brisés Museum Society, the Nova Scotia Museums, our funding partners, Community Cultures, Tourism and Heritage, and the other stakeholder organizations that use our facilities and that we partner with for programming broadly. Or sort of that third option of broad consultation in which we would do all of that, working with council, working with the advisory committee, working with our key stakeholders and partners and funders, and also engage the broader public. So that would be general public in addition to facility users, program participants, and sort of the broader community. Staff are recommending the broader consultation approach because it has been so long that we've engaged in any, but we are here to seek direction from you on where this is your strategic priority. How do you feel we should go about in sort of taking this next step on the integration of rec and culture services together?
Okay, thanks. Questions, comments from council? Councillor Newell?
Who will end up leading these consultations? Yourself, Kara, another member of your team?
Yep, myself and Kara, and we may, we would probably seek support from somebody external in terms of helping for situating and like how.
Facilitating and things like that,
facilitating
yeah.
conversations, facilitating, you know, helping to develop if we're going to do a survey or something like that. We would seek additional expertise.
Do you foresee like an additional budget item coming to this for the operations budget, or?
So right now we have, and it's in there, we have a small budget amount for this strategic planning in this year's budget. So we would, given that it's at this point in the year, we may or may not spend all of that in this fiscal year. So there might be a need where we'd underspend this year and ask to rebudget a small portion, the remainder of that into next year. Yeah.
What do you see as the difference in the time commitment of like staff and versus the time to completion for each of these three options?
Well, the broader consultation obviously will take us longer because we would need time to go out to community and find different ways in which we would engage with community, going to where community's at, where they're coming into us, etc. So I would imagine it would take several months more than it would if it was the limited or the focused.
Other questions or comments? I certainly support the option C, the broader consultation with stakeholders and the public. I think this is an opportunity, if we're going to do it, to kind of reach out with a broader net. I think it'll bring the museum into focus for the public as well, because we're going to go out talking about the museum, so it allows us to engage more broadly with members of the public and bring that back into focus. So if we're going to do it, we might as well engage the people that we want to bring into the facilities instead of just targeted to the people who are already going to go anyway, right? So, I mean, I just see it as a little bit of feedback and direction from the public while also raising the profile of the facility, reminding them that it's there and they can have a say in how they want it to kind of move forward and evolve. So I certainly am supportive of the recommendation of the broader consultation, but looking for some direction from council on that, if someone's prepared to make a motion.
Do you want the motion?
This is why the chairs swivel.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater direct staff to proceed with option C and broadly consult with stakeholders, members of the public, and facility users to gain a clear understanding of community need and opportunities of the Des Brisés Museum and to report back to council.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Wynot. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Down to 10.3, policy approval and inspection of inspection and violations policy. Sorry. Mr. Brown.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Staff have drafted for Council's consideration policy concerning land use bylaw inspections and violations. This work originates with staff based on previous reporting on current violations to the land use bylaw as well as registered development agreements and Council's strategic priority for a consistent approach to bylaw enforcement. The objective of the policy is to support transparency and accountability and enforcement of the land use bylaw by the town's development officers. It is the development officers who are responsible for the investigation of alleged violations of the land use bylaw. This policy is not a delegation of authority to staff from council. Rather, it's intended to create consistent procedures as well as clear circumstances for making recommendations to council concerning any prosecution that may arise. Clear policy and procedure establish accountability and consistency in addressing noncompliance. Benefits include ensuring fair and uniform handling of noncompliance issues, mitigating risk exposure to legal, financial, and operational risks by addressing issues promptly, encouraging adherence to rules through defined consequences and corrective actions, and the documentation of a record for investigations. Considering the timelines for compliance imposed on the property owner outlined in the policy, those timelines to gain compliance vary for each type of noncompliance scenario and for the different issues of noncompliance. There is really such a wide variety of items regulated under the land use bylaw, and there will be situations where compliance may require a longer timeline. The policy has been written to give some discretion in those circumstances to the development officers based on factors such as risk to health and safety, impact on adjacent property perhaps, and so on. There are so many different scenarios at play. A violations policy will create a proactive compliance culture. The more proactive culture would seem to create additional burden on the development officers. However, clearer procedures for enforcement should streamline the process through its standardization. So we do not foresee any problem in that regard. Like always, workload will be monitored going forward. So it's for the reasons mentioned that staff are recommending that council adopt the new policy concerning land use bylaw violations and inspections.
Okay.
Take any questions.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
There is a section where it says that 14 days is given for complex violations that are more difficult or time-consuming to remedy, but more immediate remedy is necessary to reduce an immediate risk to human life, health and safety, or negative impact on natural environment. Are there other tools that can be used if something needs to be shut down to protect human life or safety, if it's that immediate?
I mean, it's a good question. I think it would really depend on the scenario, on exactly what is happening. There could potentially be involvement by Bridgewater Police Services. You know, the idea there is that if there is something that you know requires more immediate action, then you know reduce that timeline and ensure that something is getting in front of council so that you know council can make a decision on forthcoming prosecution. It's a good question. And I don't have a great answer for you on that. There hopefully is, but again, I think it would depend on the situation.
Is that something we can follow up on? And if there's
Yeah.
something that needs to be added to give an immediate closure, if there's risk to human life, that
Yeah.
there's an immediate action?
Yes.
Yeah, where it's a policy, it's a little more flexible than a bylaw.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we need to add something, we can, right, as more information comes to light, versus a bylaw that has to go through multiple readings, right? So it's our policy, we can change our policy.
It still has 2 readings.
Uh,
give notice and then.
We have to, yes, you have to give notice and then have the meeting, but versus, yeah, it's much quicker, so. A little bit more flexibility in that, if we can think of a situation where we need to.
Yeah,
But-
if it's not something that's ever come up or you don't think it could ever come up in these scenarios, then fine, but
And I think it could. I'm not going to say that it wouldn't. I think it would, yeah, it would be a very rare instance. And as I said, there are other, you know, sometimes there's you know, the building code is also at play, so there might be also a non-compliance issue with that. And so there are a different set of you know.
other tools, yeah.
Tools, yeah, available
Yeah.
there. But certainly we can.
Okay,
we'll
yeah, I
have a good-
wouldn't want to see you in a situation where you feel like that's, you
Right.
know, or you guys, in a situation where, you know, you have to give 14 days, but there's significant risk.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Someone prepared to make a motion. Councilor Caldwell?
I move the town council for the town of Bridgewater approve the new policy number 118 with respect to land use bylaw inspections and violations as outlined in Appendix A of document 25-192 dated December 8th, 2025.
Thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor McDonald. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. 10.4, which is second and final reading of bylaw number 235, which is some housekeeping amendments to Chapter 197, our vending bylaw, which is going to be read by Amanda.
Oh, yes. Okay. Okay, this item was first introduced at the council meeting held on December the 8th, 2025. At that time, notice was given for housekeeping amendments to Chapter 197 vending bylaw. Just to reiterate, the bylaw has gone through several amendments in the past couple of years. As those amendments occurred, the numbering and lettering sequence became inconsistent. The amendments first proposed on December 8th and again tonight do not affect the wording or the intent of the bylaw, only the numbers and letters. To ensure the sections and subsections are consistent in their identification for reference and enforcement purposes, renumbering and lettering was required throughout. So at this time, it's being recommended the council consider conducting second and final reading of bylaw 235, a bylaw to amend Chapter 197 vending bylaw.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on that? It's pretty straightforward, as read by Amanda. Can I have a motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Wynot.
I move that the town council for the town of Bridgewater conduct second and final reading of bylaw number 235, a bylaw to amend Chapter 197, vending bylaw, with respect to housekeeping amendments to amend the numbering and lettering portion of various sections and subsections to add clarity and uniformity to the bylaw pursuant to Section 168 of the Municipal Government Act, as contained in Appendix C of document number 25-194, dated November 27, 2025.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Conklin with the like slow-mo hand raise. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We are down to the most exciting part of the evening, where we will be talking about the 2026-2027 capital budget. So as our Director of Finance comes down, just a reminder that, the council is going to ask some questions and things like that, but we're not approving this tonight. This is part of the budget process, but we'll be, I just want to make sure the public understands that they have questions. There are still lots of time for questions.
Matt, you couldn't sound any more excited.
Even Black Melvin coming up here.
He loves being up here.
Just like, isn't Capital Kim's favorite time of the year?
I just skipped ahead a couple of slides just because I wanted to first go over the things that have changed since the last time this was reviewed at council in early December. While we were looking at the award of the fire truck for 26-27, we did inquire with the fire department when their next truck would be due, and that is in fiscal year 2032-33, and it wasn't reflected in the 10-year capital plan. It was, but it was in like a future year. It hadn't made it into an actual year. So that's since been added at $3 million. In addition to that, there were a couple of things that came up. Public Works garage roof replacement at $250,000, the King Street Court gazebo roof at $25,000. And then another change in mostly in years is the wastewater treatment plant RBC shaft replacement due to the situation at the wastewater treatment plant. Currently, that's going to be moved up from later fiscal years to the 26-27 year at a higher budget. So it's gone up about $187,000, but it was already in the 10-year plan due to being a DMAF funded project. So that's been changed around a bit since the last version. I think that's the bulk of the change. The only other thing that would have changed is the fire truck, because it was awarded over budget. So the current fire truck, so that one is also reflected at the amount that was approved by council. So now I'll give you the new totals. So The presentation is similar to last time, but it is updated for the newest values. So the 26-27 capital budget amounts there, how they're funded. So there's $15 million of debt in addition to the $18 million for the projects being carried forward. The debt service ratio is still at 6.45 because it presumes we start repaying the debt the year following the year we actually do the project. So you'll see it quickly picks up in 27, 28, and that's a result of the debt for both the carry forwards and the 26, 27 year being required in 27, 28. I do also remind you that many of our capital projects are multi-year, so this is worst case scenario, and in all likelihood, like a multi-year project like Pump Station 3 will take a few years, even though it's in the current budget. You know, we probably won't be borrowing for that for a couple more years, but you are committing to that debt service ratio at that level when that project happens. So it's just kind of the only thing I can promise you is these won't be the debt service ratios. But again, it's based on funding it the year subsequent to completion of the project. Again, just a different way of looking at the budget, summarized by category. So you'll see this is, oh, anyway, close enough. It's not the right one, but or not the one I put in here. It's not the last version of the presentation. It's the one before that. So you'll notice it says wastewater treatment plant, $55,000. That's incorrect. That actually is Public Works, so some of the headings are incorrect in this version, so I apologize for that. I presume the one that you received in your package should be the correct one. And that was my fault because I sent multiple versions of the presentation on Thursday. But the wastewater treatment plant totals is 56 million. That's what says wastewater above it. Wastewater is 81 million, which is the transportation column, and transportation is actually 22.5 million. So just a slight change in the headers, but we'll make sure you get the right version of that presentation. This, unfortunately, is not a typo, and is actually the projected debt service ratios based on the current capital budget. So you'll see the fiscal year 2031-32, the maximum debt service ratio over the 10-year capital plan is 33.6%, and just goes down slightly from there after those years as some of the old debt gets paid off. Again, we went over these slides, so just the color coding in the capital budget itself is that if the line item is highlighted green, it's a DMAF project and we are committed to it. Purple items are things that are up to council's discretion that have been identified by council or staff as projects. However, they may not have a mandatory component to them. And then the next portion of the slides we won't go over again are just things that had changed since the 25-26 capital budget, just to give you an idea of what's happened there. So we won't go through that in detail. It was presented in detail at the December meeting. I did, however, add a new slide for you just so we could put some context to this capital budget. So the first column is the debt service ratio based on this budget. As it is today, and that maximum debt service ratio of 33.6. So in order to give you some context of how to get the debt service ratio lower, in any of the years that had debt of $3 million or more, I just reduced the borrowing by $3 million. That gets us the best possible situation is to get us to 29.61% debt service ratio. So that's cutting $3 million per year for multiple years. Will get us below the 30 line. I know we've talked about the wastewater treatment plant expansion and that being a significant investment of about $50 million. There are funding programs out there that have federal and provincial funding. So if we happen to we were a successful applicant in that kind of application for that $50 million project with approximately 73% federal provincial funding, the town funding the rest, we could get the debt service ratio down to 23.82 would be the lowest that a funding for a massive project like that could get us reduced by. And then the last column is if we had a combination of those two scenarios, the $3 million a year in reduced borrowing by cutting things from the capital budget, and significant funding for the wastewater treatment plant, the highest the debt service ratio would get is 19.83. So really just kind of looking at what could council look at for options that deeply affect the debt service ratio. Not that you have a choice to get federal or provincial funding, but, you know, if we were successful, that's a big help. But it doesn't do enough. So it's the combination of these two things that really would get you to a lower debt service ratio, but knowing that you're not in control of all those factors.
But to me, there's limited, like that last column is and I'm just speaking for myself, it's the starting point. I know we budget correctly, which is not making assumptions that we're going to get funding that we don't think is guaranteed, because when municipalities do that, they inevitably wind up in big trouble. But at the same time, like column one, we just can't do column one. So to me, there's no path forward for the first column. Just projects will have to stop and we'll have to figure out something else. Column two doesn't get us where we need to go. Column three gets a little bit better, but to me, our effort should all be on that last column or something even more. You know, truth be told, we have been very fortunate with the funding that we've received from the other two orders of government. We know where the town of Bridgewater stands in a priority for the provincial government and the federal government, which is quite high. Our Michelin is very, very important federally to the national economy. And I know people might look at that and go, it's not the biggest factory in the country, but it is a very, very important factory. So I'm encouraged by that last slide, but I also know that nothing's guaranteed. But considering I think we all just thought slide one, maybe slide two was maybe where we could get. So my blood pressure is going down a little bit, but there's a lot of work to do, obviously.
And not to make your blood pressure go up, but I would say that this is without anything new. Like, there's things that we don't know that may happen over the next 10 years that are not accounted for in this budget, and that could happen.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
From things breaking to policies or regulation changes from other orders of government that cause us to carry more of a burden that we're not able to carry, so, which we've seen in the past. So. We'll see. Okay, sorry.
No, so that's the bulk of what I needed to present. Just to give us some context, we went through the years in detail in December, as well as looked at mostly the highlights of some of the later years. But really, Matt and I are here to answer any questions you have and hopefully to get some direction from council on how we get somewhere between column 1 and 4.
I know a number of councilors have some questions, so I'll just ask folks to raise their hands and maybe ask one or two, and then we'll let someone else ask. If you have more, we'll go back to you.
Go on the table.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor?
On the new items that were added, the Public Works garage roof replacement and King Street Court gazebo roof, those are big amounts for, the Public Works garage is a big building, but I mean, I can only base it on what I know from a residential roof, not just a house roof, but they seem like big numbers. Why are they so much more than like my house roof would be?
In terms of the Public Works garage and King Street Court, or just
Right.
the Public Works garage?
Well, Public Works garage, I'm going to assume is size, but the
Size
gazebo's not
and the
very
type of
big.
roof, it is a flat roof.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
our options are either two-ply bitumen, rolled roofing, or three-ply. There are other options as well, but they are more expensive.
Okay.
With respect to King Street Court, there is that was added based on the assumption of putting a metal roof in over top. If we were going to replace it with the existing cedar shakes that are there, I believe that budget would more than double.
Really?
For the roof and the gazebo.
My understanding from staff, the last time it was installed was 2006 through a local company, and so we had our facilities supervisor quote a metal roof, and based on the labor and supplied materials, the labor already being in operation, that's purely materials for that budget.
Boy, that seems extraordinarily high. $25,000 for
What kind of metal?
gazebo. Gold.
Gold. So I can tell you
$800.
for you know, only my two dormers, my roof was $2,500. So I only did probably an 8-inch roof of metal.
It just seems like
And that's doing it in-house in terms of installation. That's just supply of materials. There are requirements of crane to do, given where it's located, does make it a little bit more expensive, of course, but
Does it make sense to use another material? Could we not use asphalt shingles on it?
staff can look at, I can certainly ask facility staff to look at another type of material. We did have a conversation in-house about given that the roof is below grade and you can see it, aesthetically, we thought the public would either prefer cedar, which is more expensive, or the metal roof versus asphalt, just trying to keep with the style of our current buildings that we have metal roofs on, or cedar shakes. So, I mean, I could certainly price out asphalt shingles if need be.
I mean, I know metal roof, once it's done, it's done. Like, you don't have to really do it for a very, very, very long time, but it just seems like a lot. I'm also saying that as someone who doesn't have a metal roof on my house, so I don't know what it costs, so it just seems like a lot. Yeah. Did you have another
No,
question?
I do, but I'll take turns.
Okay.
Cheryl.
Yeah.
Councilor Vergier.
Yes, thank you. So I noticed for the North Parkade repairs allocated with some electrical upgrades with a possibility of an EV charger.
So, trying to recollect the conversation on just before Christmas. I believe at this point, the description of that project is wrong. I didn't update it.
Okay.
The North Parkade will be focused on the condition assessment report that
Okay.
council has yet to see.
Yes.
So those repairs will be focused on the surface itself and the fencing.
Okay.
Before the addition of the EV charger or anything like that. So that's a poor description on my part.
Okay. So going back to the Parkade's assessment, and it's inspected so many years, I assume, I can't remember what the last report
On
was.
average, we are looking at about every 5 years that we're doing an assessment. So unfortunately, in my time, we've done 2 assessments without very much maintenance being completed to it.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to buck that trend with council's blessing on the program or the assessment results to complete some of the work on the North Parkade this year.
Okay, so was the money allocated to the budget include no EV charger?
Correct.
Okay.
At this time.
Okay. And if I may ask a question with regards to the old arena. So there's money allocated there to upgrade the inside where the current farmer's market vendors use inside the main door. It said washrooms and heat, is that correct, or electrical?
That might be another, are you referring to, I have my other budget document.
Like, I think it said $50,000 inside on level 1, maybe.
So I need to do a better job at reviewing the project descriptions. So the conversation thus far for the farmer's market is to complete the condition assessment next year, so that we can plan any renovations to it going forward appropriately. So the 50,000 has nothing to do with level 1, level 2, it's just purely to do a condition assessment. So I believe I was here maybe last June, I can't remember, about a program to assess all of our facilities. So right now, we're undertaking the town hall with a report forthcoming for that. The next year, we were planning to do the Bridgewater Fire Department, but we've switched that to do the Bridgewater Memorial Arena, or former arena, at $50,000.
Okay, because I don't know if it's appropriate to bring it up, but anyway, I've been asked by some of the vendors at the market that are inside using it, asking when they are going to get heat. And I know, like, some of them can't go outside summer season, you know, and if you go in there when they've got certain products that need to be controlled temperature, I'm just wondering if there's been any discussion around how, you know, put in the budget. I know you're saying an assessment has to be done.
So certainly don't want to steal the economic development officer's thunder when it comes to Bridgewater Farmers Market.
Yeah.
There are discussions about the addition of heat through collaboratively with the farmers market at their cost.
Oh, okay.
But I think Dawn is the best to speak to that.
Okay.
I don't have those discussions.
We do have 210 put in for 27-28. Because that's what you're referring to.
That 210,000 is a old budget figure from former staff. There's no plan for that work at this point. I've just kept that going until we get the condition assessment. So there's money earmarked, but with no plan.
So it'll change if the plan comes back and says we don't need it or we need a different amount.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so if I may, we've been in discussions with the Bridgewater Farmers Market. As you know, they came forward as a board, not the vendors, but as a board. They've been to council to talk about their plans for the future, and that they had no formal request yet as they were figuring out the next steps. We've met with them, we've addressed and looking for some flexibility. Just as a step back, when the farmers market took over and had a lease of that venue, it was for summer. This is an arena, there's no insulation, and the heat, when you turn it on, goes out. So it was never intended to be used that way. So now we've switched in that they've gone to a year-round lease, so there's some developmental processes with the building. So that's where staff in consultation with farmers market acknowledging we need to assess the building before we start to make a lot of adaptations. We could put heat in, and it's going to go out through the walls and through the floor because there's no heating there. So again, appreciating that concern, but we are working with them and have as recently as last week, did a walkthrough looking at what modifications might we be able to do with some of their concerns in the immediate. But again, acknowledging this was never built as a year-round facility, nor have all of the adjustments been made to support that. And we need the condition assessment completed first. And the farmers market needs to come back with the full plan of what they intend to do and what the other sources might be. So we would sweep it all up at once.
So timeline for condition assessment would be
In this upcoming fiscal.
This fiscal year? Okay, okay.
So only to add to the former B&A conversation is we do operate the farmers market, social players. We also have transit facility and park staff that operate out of there. So there are other requests that staff have made to renovate that facility based on all the needs of every department, which again, I would be reluctant to put forward until we have that condition assessment done.
Okay.
So that's the kind of the first benchmark to assess it, and then we can figure out what the next
Okay.
steps are.
One last question, if I may, just while we're on the Bridgewater Arena. The parking lot, I know that a good section of the parking lot was paved this past fall. Is there, looking at the budget, I think there was future paving dollars allotted for future years. Is that on hold at this time as part of the assessment, or would we be looking to spend more dollars for paving?
In terms of the BMA parking lot, given the work done to date, I've suggested that we continue to do work if there's nothing that requires us to. But I do recognize that our liability has opened up as from it being a staff-only facility for the last number of years into more of a with social players and public. So we can treat that similar to other parking lots where we do an annual program, i.e. the town center, where we invest X amount of dollars and we take what we can, or the most important part. So that number I can be flexible on. I just said the original estimate was over $600,000 to do the entire parking lot from north, east, west, south. So I've just broken that over multiple years based on this past year, but we can certainly, look at that.
Okay, so it's kind of spread over. So would you say last year we stayed within our budget of what we around?
Ahead of here, I didn't get the invoice from Dexter Construction,
Okay.
who did that work. So I will go back, but I know I tried to stay within budget to complete that work, or the staff try to stay within budget.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Wynot.
Intersection improvements, Aberdeen and North, I see is in for 3.1 million. I thought I had it in my notes. Did we not look at a couple of options last year? And is that, I guess my question is 3.1 like worst case scenario? There was a lesser option I thought we looked at a year ago.
So there, yet another report that's forthcoming. We had our design consultant complete a review with new traffic data. So certainly don't want to steal Jonathan's thunder when he comes to report to council on this matter. But the good news with respect to that, with the new traffic data, is that staff can make the assumption that because of the improvements at the top of Silver Hill and LaHave at Aberdeen, with the traffic counts that we completed this fall, that the intersection is actually operating better than the original study that I completed in 2021. So with that, there are options for council. Yes, 3.1 is the worst case with the roundabout. Ruining the traffic signals with double left turn lanes as an alternative would be about 2 million. There could be two other options that we could look at would be to renew these traffic signals themselves as they are improving accessibility. Your figure's probably closer to what we spent on LaHave and Aberdeen, around the 1.5 or a little less because we're not doing the Q lane. Or we could take the fourth option, being that given that the intersection is working, I'll use that term loosely, better, we could re-monitor again with this year's traffic to see if it is staying at a level C service and delay doing that work. With that option, staff would make the recommendations to at least acquire all the necessary property so that you can design, so my successor, or whoever that may be, would be able to deal with it in 2045. But also start planning the active transportation part of the project, as well as doing the infrastructure upgrades that are necessary too. So there are other steps we could do in the meantime to make that project more complete in 2045. Sorry, that was pretty much the extent of the memo, but that's just new information I got. Just
I think the two numbers you might remember is last year we made the decision for LaHave and Aberdeen, where we had the two options, roundabout and lights, and we had two prices, and we went with.
I thought we discussed Aberdeen. Maybe I'm wrong. You could be right, but I thought we did discuss
Aberdeen as well, but I didn't think we had numbers. Did we have numbers?
I think we had old numbers.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just want to make a point, because both Councillor Frugier and Councillor Wynot touched on it. When you say worst-case scenario 3.1 million, just bear in mind that every time we have a capital discussion, 10 to 20% increase every year for capital costs. So in 5, 6, or 7 years, that price tag could actually double. It's not out of the realm of the possibility. So just want to caveat that worst case scenario. If we wait 5 years and we say 3 million today, it's not out of the question that it could be 6 million in 5 years' time.
The mayor's blood pressure.
Yeah,
that's all right.
One other minor question, if I may. This is a $25,000 budget item, but just some clarity on the fire department water access, road to LaHave River water access. Assuming they have some access right now, this is another access point for them?
Certainly, it would be, the purpose or the need for it should be reviewed with Chief Noss.
Okay.
But what I can say is that it has been requested every year that I've been here for access to the Lehave River in and around that area to support the industrial park and the buildings there. So it's, my understanding is very strategic through their emergency response plan. Or may not be the right words, but they've asked, and it seems the bottom of Logan is very important to getting access there.
Oh, that's very fair. Thank you.
I have reached out to the fire chief for more details, so when those come, he will probably present them to council as well, but similar question about the access
Okay.
road. Yeah. Councillor Newell.
Sure. I guess I'm going to start back with the community space perhaps. So right now it looks like I see 500,000 in line items from 2026 to I don't know, that's 2031. It says 600,000 total. So is that just 100,000 we've already spent, or do I not understand the numbers?
What, which line?
Sorry, this would be BMA parking lot, resurfacing parking lot. It says total budget 600,000, but I only see 100,000s.
Okay, so what happens is there's one page you can't see, which is 25, 26.
That's what I
And
assumed.
I don't delete them until Matt confirms if anything's being carried forward or removed or what have you. So there is another page, and it's technically, or columns in our budget. So you're correct, until I delete those, it will be in some of those totals. And Matt hasn't, I know we've got the carry forward list close, it'll come to you in February probably, but we haven't, I haven't deleted them for fear that we'll have to add them back and put them on the carry forward list if a truck doesn't arrive on time or what have you, so they are in a little, there's the odd thing that's still
It's on my list.
in a holding pattern.
And so that 100,000 has been spent. Is that for the lot that's already been paved, or is that a separate?
No, that's for the section that has been paved, and I
Okay.
would go through Town Suite right now to see if the bill was paid yet. But I don't want to mess up the screens that I have
Because
right now.
I think partly to Councillor Fagier's point is just trying to gauge if like 500,000 feels like a lot, and I think your original quote was about 600,000. I'm just trying to gauge if that feel realistic, or are you saying that maybe we don't do the whole parking lot and we figure out what percentage we do? Like, I'm just trying to understand where that number's coming from.
So
Or what we can
I'm
do
not-
with that number.
So I remember a conversation at this table back last budget. I believe Councillor Conklin might have said if you keep keep on them, you'll make the price keep less. I believe I started with about 110,000. We got a new quote of 89,600. So the third time I might have got it. So that was then just doing the paving work and Public Works doing in-house labor. So I don't know if all of that has hit the budget yet, or the GL account. But I can, after council, or I can see if it has been charged, to give you square footage and the cost for it if need be.
Actuals right as of today are 78,592 in that account.
Has there been labor?
There's some labor in there, yeah.
So yeah, so we would have done around $100,000 now.
Okay.
And that includes doing, I believe, electrical conduit for an outdoor for farmer's market too. So we did achieve under the $100,000.
Well done.
But I guess back to my point, we expect the rest of the parking lot to cost thereabouts 500,000, a little bit less, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. To the point the acting CIO made, where costs hypothetically double every 7 years, give or take, right? We're running if we were the S&P 500, if only. I assume, are we already budgeting, assuming those cost increases? Like, we're not going to come back in 5 years and being like, yeah, it increased because of rate of inflation, but we haven't budgeted for that.
We don't necessarily have an inflation factor on every line item, because we just don't know. It's the market, right? It's
Sure.
market rates, whatever vendors are willing to supply
Yeah.
at. So, I think we've talked about this before, about pavement management, that we budget $800,000 a year, and what that buys us is less and less asphalt every year.
So that one makes sense, but I suppose
Right,
like
so-
a parking lot, if we go to pave the last section in 7 years, is that actually going to be $200,000, but we're budgeting in like present day dollars? Where I know like we're playing with like expectations, or like we don't know what the future will hold, but like I'm just trying to understand what future planning is being done.
When we know with some certainty,
Okay.
you know, when we have actual projects that are designed. That's why, you know, when we look at the list of what changed from last year's budget to this year's budget, and we had new estimates on, you know, things like LaHave Street and so on. Once we have more information, we update those budget figures, but we're not just randomly adding, you know, a percentage to those.
And to add, in terms of my budget document too, I have rated the BMA parking lot as a level 3. So obviously a level 1 would be must do, should do. Level 3 is it's nice to do. So I wouldn't spend a lot of time in my estimate, my time that I put into estimates. We can stretch that X amount of dollars. If you only want to do $50,000 a year, I'll do $50,000 a year, and we'll just take it from there. And we'd focus on a section that might be, so for the BMA as an example, if with all the user groups that go there, and we feel that the front section or the entrance off of Empire is the most important because we're doing a bus shelter, a new sign with conduit out, and sidewalk, I'd focus on my $50,000 on the front end of that parking lot and work my way towards, as an example of how I break things up, if need be.
Can I ask one more question on the parking lot? Does the money we're putting into the parking lot, is that the same sort of crews or time that goes into, say, road work? Like hypothetically, could that 600,000 go into road work, or is it, no, they're two separate teams, two different sets of equipment, it's not really impacted one or the other?
In terms of the parking lot, if we follow the, I guess the way we've done things in the past, we would have prep work done by Public Works, and then we contract out the pavement itself. So we would remove the existing asphalt, any sub-grade repairs, compact, and then municipal group or somebody would come in and pave whatever section needs removed or prepped. That's how we've done parking lots before.
Okay.
That way, that's fair.
But like, I guess what I'm saying is like, is that same skill set and work transferable to, say, a public road, if there was a road to be repaired?
Yeah.
Okay, I was just like, if it's $600,000, that could go somewhere else. I've got more questions, but I'll yield to the next member of council.
Maybe if I could just respond real quick to that. So we have so much money, we have so much capacity to manage the spending of that money and the implementation of the work. We can spend it on that parking lot, or we can do another project. But we probably can't do both. And those, I think, are the choices that the Director of Engineering is trying to outline. Like, we've only got so much, and as Director of Finance says, if we spend $50,000 or $100,000 on pavement every year, it's going to buy us less and less pavement over time if we spend the same amount of money. So I'm not sure if that helps with the clarity or not, but...
No, I think you're answering a different question than what I was, but I did get the answer to the question.
All right, thank you.
Because I'm literally saying, if hypothetically you were to say, we're not going to pave the parking lot at all, and we were going to say move those resources we'd be spending to, say, a street project, and the answer is they are transferable resources, not doing both at the same time. Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Councilor Conklin.
Percentage of our capital projects that have been completed. What are we looking at for this fiscal year and last fiscal year? Because I know, like, just looking for a ballpark. I know there's carry forward, so what are we tracking at? 80%, 70%?
Not a number that I track. We do give you, when we come with a carry forward list, we tell you what percentage of those projects being carried forward are complete. So, for example, Pump Station 3, it's in the list. We're in the design phase, right? So we would indicate that's 5 or 10% or whatever that might be. And then the other projects like 12A, it's like 95%, we're just finishing up St. Philip's, the rest is up to the province to turn, like legitimately turn it over to ownership to us, so. Everything's at a various stage, so.
So I guess what I'm looking at is not the project in its entirety. It would be, so for example, BMA parking lot, 100,000 for 2025-26. So what was the percentage of completion on that item? That would be 100%.
Yes.
So, excuse me. So, I'll be looking for comparables for this fiscal year, last fiscal year on the purple items. So we had purple items last year, purple lines, I think is the same color code that you used.
The color coding is kind of new for this year.
Because what you're looking
What color
for,
coding did we have last year?
so Counselor, are you looking for, like, if we had 25 capital projects last year, are 20 of them done, or 22 of them done, or 5 of them done? Like,
Okay, not completely done. I'm looking at, so let's look at, for example, sidewalk improvement for last year. So what did we have budget for just for last year? 125,000?
100, yeah.
150? And did we complete that 100%, what we wanted to accomplish?
I'd have to go back and, without giving an off-the-cuff answer, to look at that.
Yeah.
But what I can say is that we endeavored to complete all those projects, specifically for sidewalk. What's important is doing the assessment ahead of time in the spring. We did complete a number of meters of sidewalk this year. I do have numbers for this year in terms of overall. So if you factor in the work we did on King Street, the work we did on LaHave Street, both contracted and in-house, we completed about 2.5% of our sidewalks this year, or 900 meters of 36 kilometers. So I don't know if we'll ever achieve that again. That was pretty, I think that was a success of completing 2.5% of sidewalk in 1 year. It's awfully difficult because there are a number of factors that go in with sidewalk, and the biggest one is that we do not control the supply of concrete, and we only have one concrete supplier. So we are at their mercy to supply concrete, and they have to supply concrete to other developments, other projects, so it's tough.
So it's safe to assume that for this year, we were 100% on the crosswalk?
It may not look that in the GLs because of depending on the projects we completed, and it's broken out, but I would say that we've completed I know we've completed over 450 meters of sidewalk in-house by staff, which is more than double what we did last year.
Later this evening, we're going over the Q2 report, and there is a capital project report in there, which kind of looks at where we are to date and what the budget is. In the future, we could add a percentage complete column for each of those projects. In that quarterly report, I mean, realistically, the actuals there and what we projected to be at year end is there. But we could add a percentage complete to that, just so that we can add an estimate of that. But that is the main way we report capital, progress on capital projects quarterly to council. So.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess I'm not looking so much as what our completion rate is relative to the final project being, or the project being finally completed. It's just what our goal is for that year. So, you know, if we have, for example, a 10-year capital project to get all of the sidewalks in town resurfaced, then basically you're looking at 10% each year. We should be able to. How many? What do we have? 90 kilometers?
36 kilometers.
36 kilometers. So then basically our goal would be 3.6 kilometers a year. I'm just trying to break it down a little bit more. I guess. A little easier to measure how we're doing year over year, because I know we've had struggles in the past in getting some projects completed just because of scheduling, work crews, and other challenges like that. And I'd like to see going forward that we're able to, I guess, not counter those types of challenges that's impacting us in trying to get any of these projects done.
So if I can suggest, because we're we're going through the capital budget for this year, so if we're looking for changes in how the budget's presented, that probably is a discussion just in itself. I just don't want to lose sight that we're dealing with the items in the 26, 27 budget. I see what you're saying. Like, some of these are good ideas to see where they're at, and to know if Matt's goal is 2.5 percent of all sidewalks done this year and he achieved that, that is great, or if it's 900 meters or whatever it is.
Okay.
Because there's probably a bunch of people with different, oh, I wish I could see this, or I don't like seeing that, and maybe that's just a discussion.
I guess where I'm getting at is if we're only tracking at 80% of getting these things accomplished on a year-over-year basis, then, you know, right away, we can eliminate 20% of this, of the items in the purple column.
And you're
You know
saying,
what I mean?
but because of capacity
So
or
we're
money?
over
'Cause,
budget,
yeah,
we're not
yeah.
gonna use it.
Yeah,
So why bother?
And we've had the discussion before, the year that we moved pavement management up one year to $1 million or $1.4 million, and then staff came back the following year and said, we did the same amount we've always ever done because you added money with no capacity. So that is, I think, and that's probably part of our strategic planning discussion too of, if we're over budgeting,
Yeah.
like to Matt's point, you did 900 meters of sidewalk, between road and sidewalk construction this year, I know it was excruciatingly painful with road construction. I've never seen so many roads paved in the town. But if it's not a achievable goal every year, then we should make sure we're not budgeting, to your point, Councilor Coggin, there's no point budgeting to that amount if we're not going to achieve it.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's a strategic planning, that goes, just think of Tammy and her capacity bucket. So if we're overfilling the capacity bucket.
It's
then-
all about capacity and priorities and choices, and we will probably always want to do more than we can with the resources that we have. But we're going to start our strategy tomorrow, and, I think your point's well taken, and presenting with you an easy-to-understand snapshot of where we are on our capital progress, I think is reasonable, and we can do that.
Thanks. I did have another question. On the Generations Active Park conceptual plan, could you kind of just give me a lay of the land where we are? So total budget of 1.155, and I forget what we had for this year, but 27, 28, 600,000? What would that, what would that include? What would that cover?
We're 475 for this year, plus 80 carry forward.
So where we're at on the project itself, so through the efforts of community development and the engineering staff, the RFP has been issued for its design. I believe it closes near the end of January, give or take 27th or 29th. Okay. So we'll be at least moving the needle of having a consultant in place. The focus of the rest of this fiscal year and next fiscal year will be the accessible playground, because we do have funding in place for that. And with hopes that we can expedite the splash pad pavilion portion of that work with its design, so we can quickly move in from playground to splash pad the following year. So.
Okay. This just kind of ties in with maybe something we had in a discussion session that might alleviate some of the pressure here, but.
Oh, yeah, so,
Yeah.
that's something we'll have to discuss
Yeah.
as well, yes, from last week, you mean?
Yeah.
Yep,
Mhm. Yeah.
yep. So that will definitely come back, yeah.
For the 26-27 year, we are pretty much fully grant funded on the accessible playground. There's a grant, we're using the half funding as well as gas tax money, so there's no debt involved in that first phase.
Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
I know we've asked about this in past years, and I can never remember. The Public Works garage tire storage and tire changer. What is wrong with the current storage?
My understanding is that we've used dilapidated self-storage containers, C-cans, very unsafe for staff. They're now rotten, so they had to be removed, and we're putting a building in place so that the tires can be stored properly, itemized, inserted and removed safely. So that's the main part of it. So again, that's where the description of that project is a little invalid. We're not purchasing a tire changer at this point, apparatus. We're just focused on the storage and shelving for this year and next year, because staff have already removed the C-cans, and we're prepping the pad for the new Star tire storage, and we've bought the ICF forms for the foundation.
Councilor Cowell?
So if we're looking at $3 million to cut. It's, we can't be nickel and diming. We need to get some big items in there. And I have to say, like, given our financial constraints and just, I think there may be cheaper options than spending over $500,000 on Kinsman Field accessibility. I spent many years at the Kinsman Field. I just think there's probably some other measures we could take to help address that. It might not be the Rolls-Royce version, but I think that we could get there much cheaper. I know we haven't had a formal report on that to council yet, but I just feel like maybe we could remove most of that from the budget and consider less expensive options. But it's also, it's a bit cart before the horse because we haven't seen the report.
Do we have a timeline on the report? Yeah.
So at this point, what we've been able, I guess, some of the theme here is staff capacity. To date, the engineering service manager and the regional accessibility coordinator have completed their review. They've got a draft presentation that I've reviewed. Unfortunately, lack of a better way to put it, there's not a lot of meat in terms of dollars to those recommendations that they're putting forth, which I guess goes to some of my points is that from a staff perspective in TOB, we don't have the knowledge or experience when it comes to accessibility issues, and we're relying on Ellen. So in order to progress this further, we need to hire a third-party consultant to kind of look at these options from an accessibility lens, but also what we can accomplish money-wise for Kinsman Field. And so that money has been placed for next year. We certainly know that as of April 1st of this year coming, that when we make major road modifications, we are to consider accessibility in those accessibility by design, and also it's good practice as well. So I guess I'm more pessimistic in terms of those dollar figures that are required to accomplish, making it accessible, including the bleachers, including a pathway to it, the washrooms, and etc. So it's not just accessibility to get to the park, there's everything that comes with it.
So
we owe you an answer. We owe them an answer on when the report can come to council, so we can talk about that.
So at this point, we can have that discussion, but there lacks the costing associated with that, which is why I put money in for having somebody with that experience and a consultant in for next year.
Okay, so not for this year.
No, not, we can certainly request Ellen come to council or a discussion session to provide her feedback and presentation along with the engineering service manager. But I know right now it's not in a position for cost that I would think council would be most interested in.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
I don't know the details of the project, but at the accessibility advisory meeting, it was shared that one of the projects that is being planned for this year is to do kind of an inventory of, and it would be for all of the partner municipalities, an inventory of the facilities, parks, public spaces, and to collect data and information about what we have, they're talking about measurements and all kinds of things. So in hearing that, it kind of made me wonder, do we need to take a step back on some larger projects to understand what we have, what's good, what's not, what's a priority that may help us prioritize some projects like that, especially ones with larger dollar amounts where we don't have a lot of money to invest in them. That project may give us the information we need to help prioritize those a little bit better. So, and again, I don't know all of the details on that project yet. It was just a very preliminary, this is what we're looking at doing. So it may not be exactly what I'm expecting, but it made me kind of step back and say, oh, well, that may give us some information we need.
I think that's valuable to do if we have recreation infrastructure that's underutilized somewhere. That would be minimal cost to bring into making it fully accessible versus taking another piece of infrastructure that has very high cost to make it accessible. There's more value for the taxpayer to upgrade. I just think there was a ball field in Mahone Bay, I think, that is underutilized. That might help alleviate some of the issues at some of the other ball fields around the region. Again, just using this as an example. And so does it make sense regionally to help invest to bring that one up to standard to alleviate some of the pressure on the other ones where there's accessibility issues? So these are things that the regional accessibility coordinator and committee has to look at. Because again, we can't, $500,000 is a lot of money. And these are regional assets that we just can't continue to pay the full bill for all these things. I go back to the financial indicators, and what they don't take into account is that towns, whether it's Bridgewater, Truro, or Yarmouth, or Kentville, carry the infrastructure burden for the 50,000 people that live in the geographic boundary around us, but only 9,000 taxpayers to pay for it. So we have to figure out other better ways to get more bang for the taxpayer buck, and that has to be a regional taxpayer. So, yes.
The vehicle GPS system is $45,000, but, is that this year? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any cost savings in having that? Is it going to provide us with something that will help us save money somewhere?
Part of this is for insurance purposes. So our insurers recommended it for several years, for sure. So for example, if there were an incident and we could pinpoint exactly when a sidewalk or street were salted, as opposed to this person worked this schedule, their usual route is, as opposed to being able to say, here's the GPS for that date, it was salted at 8 a.m. It provides us with information that sometimes would protect the town and its assets.
Right.
From the finance perspective. There's lots of other reasons why we might want that information, but from a finance perspective, I've certainly been pushing for this.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question about the bucket truck? I see it's in the budget for this year, and then 6 years later, it's in the budget again, but I can't imagine this truck is only going to last 6 years, so.
So in terms of the bucket truck, which is mainly used by the Public Works team, so the chassis that the boom is on, the lift, is in good shape. The 170 or 80, I forget the number exactly,
Yeah.
that's in for this coming year is to replace the boom itself that has, it's on its last legs. So the 2032 is
for the whole
placeholder
thing.
for the entire thing. And again, subject to our discussions with fleet asset management and fleet and equipment, the 2032 number can possibly move, but the focus next year is the boom itself.
Okay, that makes perfect sense now. Councillor Caldwell?
So there's a town hall generator in the budget. So I understand why we would want that, but maybe somebody can explain why it's a need versus a want?
Oh, I actually have this answer because I asked this question earlier. Yeah, so the generators for business continuity, I'm actually reading the note I got back. In the event of extended power outages, we do still require frontline services, accounts receivable, specifically because we still have a large proportion of people, residents that come in and pay their bills in person and don't want to be late when they pay their bills. And so they will come into town hall even in a power outage. But also like payroll, public works, and there are a number of other tasks that staff cannot do remotely. So if there's an extended power outage, we still require staff to come in. Just like we did during COVID, we had staff come in because they just have to be able to work in town hall. That was the answer I got. I asked you a
So
follow-up.
I guess my follow-up is, how have we gotten by to this point?
We've been lucky. And that's been the situation. So for example, we can't use the debit machine in an extended power outage. But if there was a deadline for someone to pay their bill and they wanted to pay with their debit card, things like that become problematic. We deposit checks electronically with a very specific device that's attached to one computer. Some of those things that we can't just take home like a printer, so that we can print things, check stocks in the vault. I don't really want people taking check stock home with them and printing checks if possible, things like that.
I believe there's also a REMO provision for this too, in having a generator in town hall.
Traditionally, I would say yes, in my experience, both with Modal and Municipality of Chester, being emerging measures coordinator sites or whatever. But it's mainly to do if we were a backup here. Certainly what I'll say to Councillor Conklin's point, the money would be in this year's budget, but to execute that project. Normally generators have a very long lead time, so we probably spend this year prepping a tender and issuing and awarding it and not get the tender. We wouldn't have the generator installed this year, but we would need the money to commit to the project in order to get the generator. We also haven't selected the site in which we're going to put the generator yet. There's probably only one left, and that's the middle of the stairwell on that side. So, hence the reason we would like to see the town hall condition assessment and look at the issues, the concerns, the great aspects of this building all together to factor in, you know, where should we invest our money and where shouldn't we invest our money. So that's a placeholder for now until we get the operations study, or the assessment done, condition assessment done, and then we can have a discussion about how we invest future dollars, because there may be a more priority item for the town hall. We don't know yet.
Right.
So I'm glad to hear that this is a placeholder, because I have a number of things that I would like us to investigate. One being, not that I want to prolong this budget discussion, but I had a long conversation with a number of organizations that, for example, we have our mobile library branches, but if you convert those mobile branches to electric buses, which is a pretty good purpose for them because they can just sit there heating or air conditioning without any fuel usage, but they can be double used in a power outage to then power your building. And because the batteries are so big, it's like a week or more of being able to power your building. So if we had a storm and a power outage, the chances of these mobile branches being deployed for library books is slim. And I've had this conversation with Modal and Chester and the town of Lunenburg as well. Having multiple of these buses to be able to go to comfort stations, whether it's a community hall or a town hall, and then power that building. So instead of buying a $175,000 generator, is it a better investment to partner with the library and use grants from the province and the federal government to electrify the library fleet to then use them in emergency situations? So, I mean, and there's a lot of questions that go with that, and I don't have all the answers right now, but there are a number of companies and organizations that do this, and the hookup that you need to make that work at your buildings is in the tens of thousands, not in the hundreds of thousands. So just might be because then at least it's doing something instead of an investment that's just sitting there hoping for a power failure. So, anyway, just share that while this is just a placeholder. We don't have to make a decision on the generator, but there are new technologies that are available that might actually serve multiple purposes for us. So. Sorry, that gets me all excited there. Sorry. Deputy Mayor.
The North Parkade repairs and improvements, 225 that's the annual amount for where you do fill in the holes, fix railings. There is mention of electrical plugs and potential EV charger location. Is that included in the 225 this year, or will that just be patching and repairing?
So we still have a report that is forthcoming on the assessment. We've talked to our consultant who's recently completed that. And the 225 really is only for surface and railing repairs, nothing to do with the EV charger at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Matt needs to update his descriptions.
Yeah. Councillor Newell, I think, is next.
For the facility condition assessment program, that's 360, and then I guess similarly the farmers market has 50,000 for facility condition assessment. Just help catch me up on, that's not done in-house. I assume that money is spent on consultants that do this, and that's what all that money goes to. Like, that feels like a lot of money, so just help educate me of like what they're doing. Like, are they checking every nook and cranny? Like, just help me understand how that money is spent.
So in terms of the money allocated this year with the ARC 49 is the consultant we hired for $50,000 this year. 25 was to do, we were fortunate with the bidding and RFP, 25 is just to look at the building facility condition assessment, and 25 is to do with the space study. So $25,000 is to look at the building in terms of its mechanical, electrical, structural, ergonomics and life and safety systems for staff itself, air quality testing, and that's what you're going to get out of that $25,000. I usually earmark for most studies. It's always $50,000 as a starting point, And then depending on experience, as I work through, I can change it, but normally it's about 50,000 that I put down for studies. But that's what we're looking for the town hall condition assessment, and I'd be repeating that scope for all of our facilities. And of course, any lessons learned on the process that I've learned in town hall that I have to include for BMA or fire department or the pool subsequent ones.
So out of curiosity, why does the BMA have a separate 50,000 from the rest of the facility assessment program?
It didn't.
Okay.
Because it was very difficult to look at the capital projects, and the fact that every project had its own line item. I prefer to have them together and say, okay, by facility, to track them. So in this case, we already had a line item for the BMA. I just put $50,000 there and separate from the rest of them, and just deleted the 50,000 from the overall facility condition assessment program, which is later on in the budget.
Okay. Is that done through consultants because it's best practice? Do we not have the skill set in-house? Is it just capacity? Like, what's the...
We don't have the capacity in-house to be looking at structural and electrical. I mean, we certainly have very knowledgeable staff, but it is not something that we can do.
So it's not a skill set issue, it's a capacity issue.
Skill set and capacity, it's a combination, but we certainly do not have the skill set to look at it as an in-depth of what the consultant's going to do.
And then just help me understand what the implications are if we said, never mind, we're not going to do that anymore. What is the implications to us in the long term?
So back in the discussion, the implications of doing this is I'm coming on a piecemeal projects. Town hall, it's going to be, I need to do the generator, I need to do the roof. Structurally, and then I think it will be a death of 1,000 cuts that you'll see, rather than seeing what I hope is a very holistic view on each building as you come and say, okay, I have a very good idea of what's involved with this building going forward. It may help inform decisions, other decisions of lack of building a new building, or collaborative efforts, as the mayor said, on maybe other shared services that we would do and then outsource from this building, so we have more capacity for staff in this building, depending on its services. So, I mean, it's also long-term planning for the building, but also factors.
My primary takeaway of that is we're trying to be proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You sum it up pretty good that way. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, just it helps me to make sure I understand it. So, okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Fajir?
Yes. Just a couple questions. So on the fleet and equipment, we have sidewalk plow replacement. Is that amount that's allocated there for one snow?
Yes.
300?
So depending on what is it the whole item? So with the fleet, instead of having an individual, so you'll see 46, 64, 85, those are unit numbers. You see sidewalk replacements, and there's 6 of them that we have to do over the course of the next 10 years.
Right.
So you'll see that there's another new unit being purchased.
So how many do we have in total right now?
I believe 6. I'd have to go back to my
Okay.
unit. But we, looking at having those conversations with the asset manager and public works staff, it's very difficult to maintain the equipment if you only have the minimum. So you'll start seeing terminology, and when we start talking about asset management, it's 4+1. So we need 4 units to be operable, ready to go, deployed, with 1 as a backup for in case of emergency, or if we're actually pulling something away for maintenance.
Okay, that brings me to my next question. Is it possible that we, I like how it's itemized for fleet and equipment, and you've got it out for the capital projects of what's being replaced over the next 10 years. Can we have an inventory of the actual fleet of vehicles and years, so we kind of can itemize? I assume that's something that the asset
We have that.
manager,
We can provide that.
and then we kind of get an idea for depreciation and how long each vehicle is going to have a lifespan.
So we can give you the life cycles for the equipment
Yeah.
and vehicles, and we can give you a list of the vehicles.
Because some of
and
them,
equipment.
like, for example, a loader may be longer than, say,
But really, this is part of our wider asset management
Yeah.
plan, so we're trying to standardize, normalize how much we spend on our fleet every
Mhm.
year.
Yeah.
Clearly, we have, for a bunch of reasons, we have a deficit in
Mhm.
that, so and every fleet will have a deficit, and we're trying to make these decisions as best we can, just like we are with the building, so they do a building condition assessment to try to apply the same methodology, understand the state and condition of your fleet, so
Yeah.
We can provide you with a
Yeah, it
list.
just would be helpful as
Yeah.
for information purposes to sort of kind of know as our town grows, so does our need for assets as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Councillor Newell, yeah.
We're
Councillor Newell, then Councillor Caldwell.
the museum front entrance signage.
That's next year, I think.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it's 2027 budget, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you could talk about it, but we got to deal with this year's budget.
We'll move on. I'll circle back.
I say that just because I looked at that too, and I'm like, no, but that's next year. So. Okay.
Maybe move on to something.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Caldwell.
Well, you're not going to like this question. This is 2930. But I'm just wondering if, if we don't bring this stuff up, then well, if we don't bring it up, then it will just happen then. So Victoria New Bridge upgrades. So those are needed. I'm just wondering if is there a operational reason why they're that far out? Or is there a way that they could be bumped up a year or two and have something pushed back? Or is there any light you can shed on that?
So specifically to do with the intersection?
Yeah.
Or, that project, the intersection itself, while I would definitely love to see it done so I can link both the east and west side of the bridge.
Yeah.
It is hard to do an intersection improvement. We have underground infrastructure issues. Those infrastructure, so we're beginning, knock on wood, to start part of that infrastructure improvements underground for Pumping Station 6 in this coming year.
Okay, right.
But we also have the other portion of DMAF was downtown Phase 3,
Right.
which was from the old bridge to new bridge. So we should be finishing that underground before we do the intersection.
Okay, so it's really timed with that?
Yes.
Okay. Cross that off my wish list.
Deputy Mayor.
The traffic light upgrades Dufferin and York. So that is to remove the lights and put in stop signs and then upgrade the tactile plates. So what's happening there? For the 15,000?
That's 15,000?
Yeah.
That is, that was a recommendation in the 2021 traffic operations study. To me, as the traffic authority, I don't see a need to downgrade our level of service at that intersection until they absolutely fail. I do recognize that is a main school route for many children on that side of town. So I much prefer to leave those intersection lights as long as they're operable, and then removing them when they fail. So it's in there, but I'll be recommending we push that out until I need to. And if I push it out long enough, we may turn around with development and new traffic studies to say, oh, we still need them and we actually have to upgrade them. So they're still operable, so I would leave them in.
Follow up on that. So the 15,000, are you leaving that in there so you can upgrade the ramps and tactile plates? Or just leave it, you're suggesting we push the 15,000 out completely?
Yes, I would.
Leave it
I'd
alone.
be pushing the 15 out completely.
Okay.
Councillor Newell, yeah.
Just going back to, I think, the vehicle GPS system, my first question is, just help me understand the difference between the vehicle GPS system and what the total robotic system is.
Total robotic system is for GPS, so that we can survey any infrastructure that we do in-house and confirm our contractors. So we have licensed technicians that would pick up that data, and the GPS is separate for the vehicles themselves.
Okay.
And I
then
believe that project will be closed out after this year because we actually got the second unit in place. If that's, I think it is $15,000.
sorry, are we talking about the vehicle GPS system?
No, the total robotics.
The total robotics is 95,000, but it's not until 32, 33.
So I would expect.
Oh, sorry, 15. It is 15,000, but I think that was already spent. Yeah, this year.
It's been done. So we will need to replace those units over time. So I don't want to forget about it. So that's a placeholder in our 10-year plan to replace one of our existing units.
And I'm sorry, they help us understand where contractors are? I don't understand.
So our surveying, we have a surveying technician, and so they'll go out when Public Works says, I need you to shoot the new manhole we put in, or an invert, they'll go out and shoot it with that apparatus, similar to.
Oh, so we know where, where does
it is spatially, and then that will be put into our GIS.
Thank you. For the vehicle GPS system, recognizing that I know there was like a request, you know, I know it's a finance request combined with, I think there's some efficiency opportunities there. I mean, do we see like an ROI on that 45,000, whether it's from insurance or something else? Like, do we see a clear, tangible, like we're going to get $45,000+ worth of value out of this?
Right, I think when we do have an incident, staff spend a lot of time gathering information for adjusters and insurers. So it would cut back on that, in my opinion. And as the department that is in charge of risk management and insurance, it would cut back on finance time as well, gathering the information. But it's Public Works who has to go all back through their documentation that they have available. So I think that would be important. I think we're only looking at putting it in snow clearing equipment at this time. It wouldn't be the entire fleet.
But we're
As a starting point with the hope to eventually get some traction on that.
But we're unclear if that 45,000 will actually, like, if there's a tangible 45,000 worth of value necessarily beyond, and this is going to sound a little more aggressive, but like beyond staff convenience, right?
Right. Our insurance deductible is $10,000 to give you a sense of what any incident can cost us.
And I can maybe add some context to that one in camera.
Oh, okay.
Our article that
Yeah.
we're going to
All
talk
right.
about tonight. Yeah.
I should note, and I know that the purpose of this is to get ask questions or whatnot, that I haven't fully looked at the staff capacity of all these projects. I first have to find out what council wishes to do, and then work from there as well. So it's kind of a chicken or the egg. But engineering has tagged the vehicle GPS to the asset manager position, and that currently that position is not filled. So there may be, again, a delay of getting that work done, but the plan would be for them to look at that.
Okay. Just while I have the floor, I just
Yep.
want to agree with Councillor Frigier that I would love the asset table of vehicles and the depreciation one. I just want to agree with that statement, so.
Councillor Conklin?
Do we know if this GPS tracking system is adaptable to be used towards a route optimization for, I guess, snow clearing?
I don't think either one of us have looked that deeply into it. It needs to get in the budget before we haven't demoed options. I've spent some time with vendors that have been at conferences and talked to them a little bit about their capabilities, but we haven't really dug into that deeply, and so it will be up to that asset management position to do the legwork on that. Matt and I just both have an interest in getting that project going.
So what I hear there is there's a concern about route optimization for our snow clearance equipment?
Heck, yeah.
Okay, and is that, you would like a report on that, or is there some
Yeah, I guess that's
evidence?
something that we've kind of tossed around like as a wish list item for a while. And this would bring us one step closer if we're getting this GPS system in our fleet. And who knows, maybe we're able to save money on, how we're plowing the streets. We don't know.
I think if they're
GPS could do it, so.
to Councillor Conklin's point, I think council has, if there are two different vendors, two different programs, and one is just GPS vehicle tracking, the other is GPS vehicle tracking with route optimization capability, we'd probably, as a council, I know we don't score the tenders, but we would probably score that higher, because it would, at the very least, even if our route was as efficient as it could possibly be, it would allow us to say to the public, we are already fully optimized in our route.
Yeah.
So I think that's, I don't see any harm in having, and UPS is a great example. I'm sure their drivers all said, I'm getting from A to B as quick as you can, and now they turned around and said, nobody's doing left turns, and look how much quicker you are. So even having that answer would be helpful, I think. And I think it would be great for staff to have that too. Deputy Mayor?
A question on that. So do I understand that there's a need for that tool? So you want to put it in the budget and then research how it will benefit us after
Not how it'll
we've
benefit,
approved a
what
budget?
options are out there. What vendors there might be. We've run into this before, even with we did a tender for budget software, and the key ones didn't respond because it's too time consuming for them. But we spent our time investigating those, and completely other companies responded. So, we can look and see what's out there in the market, but it doesn't mean they'll respond to a tender. So we're at the mercy of also sometimes who responds. So I think we just need to know what's out there. It'll be the role of that asset manager to investigate those and bring them back with, here's what we think we can reasonably do, or the budget's not enough, so we put it off till next year when we can request a higher budget, or whatever the case may be. But if we don't budget it, it doesn't get in the work plan, and it doesn't get done. So it's a starting point.
Yeah, so I was just going to say the same thing. If we don't put it in the budget now, then if in May, staff come forward and say, we've investigated vehicle GPS and this would be very advantageous, then we're a year from having it, versus if it's in the budget and they flesh out that there's a bunch of options and this is what we need to really optimize the fleet, and it's going to reduce insurance payouts and things like that, at least it's in the budget. So the starting point is getting it in the budget, and then there's always more legwork to do.
It could, with the vacant position, it could move out, just by virtue of when that role gets filled, or council can choose to keep it in the budget, but in a later year, whatever that might be. It's not critical, but it is certainly something I think we're a little behind on implementing.
Councilor Caldwell.
The installation of central sewer on Elm, maybe Matt could explain the pros and cons of deferring that potentially?
So the current situation is the central sewer, for reasons I do not know, that it goes down, it travels, we'll say north down Elm towards the co-op, former co-op, just before, then takes a right turn and goes behind and through private property, and then hits LaHave. So ideally, public infrastructure would be within our road right-of-way and accessible. And in this past year, we had to do significant work with to unplug that sewer that is undersized in poor condition because of tree roots in it. So again, do we need to do it? It's been that way for a while, and we did buy some time with the current repair. But it is one of those things where if you ask me my rating, there's the must-dos, the should-dos. This is a 2. We should be doing something, but can we delay it? Of course we can. But it's only, roots will come back and grow, and we'll have to repair it again.
Councilor Noah.
Just going back to the GAP conceptual plan, 80,000 the carry over, so for 26, 27, is that 475 all planning, or like all for the conceptual design of a splash pad, the other facility?
475 includes the accessible playground.
Includes building the accessible playground thing, and then just what would be the 600,000 the following year?
Splash pad.
It is splash pad, is what it's, okay, sorry, that's, perfect, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I know that we have more, this isn't the last time we're going to discuss that, and of course, if you have questions that come up through the acting CIO to staff, CC council, so we're not inundating with the same question over and over again. But obviously, we're not done capital by any means. We still have to actually debate it and make decisions where we're cutting or adding or moving. And then operating will be February, starting to have those discussions.
Yes, so we need to discuss whether we come back again on January 26th, as we do need to make some progress on, like, nothing's been removed from this capital budget. This discussion this evening, and staff are going to need some direction on that even before we get to operating, to know how much commitment and debt service ratio.
So I think the answer is yes, this is going to have to come back at the next meeting. So council has raised a few items, but in terms of giving direction at the next meeting, we're going to have to, if council wants something out, then we're going to have to be very clear that this is what we want out. or if we want something moved, or if we want something moved forward, pushed out, moved around. But we'll have to give clear direction. So that's 2 weeks to make sure your questions are asked and answered. I would love it if we could get those questions to staff before the next council meeting so that they can come armed with information, especially if it's something you're thinking, I don't think we should do this year, if we want to cut it or push it. Make sure that staff are armed with the information to either explain why it can't be or yes, why it can be. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I might just go one step further. You know, in order for the Director of Finance to kind of give you that global feedback on what the impact of your decisions are, if you could have those items that you might recommend cuts for to the Director of Finance, then she can say, here's the impact of the total number, and have that as a start point for discussion on January 26th, and that may help either grease the conversation or make it go longer, depending on how many decisions folks give us.
Okay. Good. All right, lots of questions. That was good. That's awesome. I like it. I also like that you're taking those notes. There's single space.
There's some space optimization.
No.
Justified paragraph.
He just needs a little GPS thing. He's going to optimize how we use that page. All right.
He's got a ways to go.
Thank you, folks. That was really good. Down to new business, we have, and thank you, Matt and Kim. I know you love being up front and answering all the questions, so I really appreciate it. We have our discussion session notes in there. So going back for our last discussion meeting of last year. So again, good time to remind the public that everything that we have in our agenda package is available for the public on the town's website. All of it, including the budget. 11.2, naming of streets adjacent to Etna.
Connor's been waiting all evening for this.
We're like, how late can we make Connor
Good evening,
stay?
council.
Yeah, maybe
I hope I don't last up here as
just
long
before
as Kim and Matt. but-
just before you jump in there, Connor, I would
Absolutely.
maybe just pile on. If there's members of the public that contact council and want some information on the capital budget, you can always point them to that. Watch the video from the stream tonight, and they can go through
Yep.
that and see all those detailed discussions, so there's no secrets.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
All right. In spring 2025, two names, Cedar Drive and Hollow Drive, were proposed by a developer to staff regarding future streets directly off of Etna Street in the Glen Allen area. The request was referred to the Heritage Advisory Committee for discussion and recommendation. The two names, Cedar Drive and Hollow Drive, were accepted as requested by the committee and subsequently referred and endorsed by the Anti-Racism and Anti-Discrimination Advisory Committee. The Heritage Advisory Committee recommends that the Town Council accept the proposed street names of Cedar Drive and Hollow Drive as endorsed by the Anti-Racism and Anti-Discrimination Advisory Committee.
Great. Any questions or comments from staff? Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Newell?
Sure. I move that town council for the town of Bridgewater approve the proposed names of Cedar Drive and Hollow Drive for two streets directly off Etna Street as recommended by the Heritage Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor McDonald. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Council.
Aren't you glad you waited? 11.3, we do have the December 2025 monthly report from the Lunenburg County Senior Safety Program, listing all their activities and all the things that they did, very important to the community and the region. Down to more financial stuff. Q2 financial report for 2025-26.
This shouldn't take us long, so I'll stand.
Thank you.
So Q2 feels like forever ago, especially as staff have spent the last few months on 26, 27 budgeting. So remembering we're at the halfway point in this financial report. So from an operating perspective, we are projecting a surplus of just over $1 million, but $560,000 of that is from deed transfer tax coming in over budget. And so as part of that, essentially, we're required that our operating surplus go into reserve, and then council can choose how to use that reserve money. So essentially, when we budget to use or budget for $500,000 deed transfer tax, we know it could be more than that, but we shouldn't really, in my opinion, be relying on that to operate the town day to day. So anything that comes in over that, we know we're going to put it in reserve, so it helps fund capital and things like that. So I know it often becomes a question, why don't we just budget more? But if it does come in lower and we get half, 3/4 of the way through the year and we tell staff cuts everywhere because we were relying on this to just operate day to day, that's not the ideal situation. So yes, we budget conservatively. Everything else goes to pay for things in the future that comes in over that 500,000 mark. So as of September 30th, we were at 658,000. So we were already over budget 6 months in. But as I've talked about before, some months could be 30,000 or 200,000. It is extremely volatile and is dependent on what's going on with property sales in the market. And so that's why it can be high and low. All of a sudden, a commercial property or a multi-unit residential sells, and that can drive that, the actuals pretty high. But we can't anticipate what that will be. So I do know that there's always concern about that, but knowing that it doesn't just get swallowed up in operating deficits and things like that is good. Other than that, we do put projections in here. It is somewhat hard to, unless we're very, very, one item is in that operating expense line, is sometimes hard to know where we'll end up in the next 6 months. That's why the Q3 report is usually a little more representative of where we think we'll be. Other than that, some maintenance, some vacant staff positions in sewer collection and disposal, has saved us some funds. The development charges that was to be paid for from the Housing Accelerator Fund, that project is in the tender process, but we'll likely spend the funds next year. So that it looks like it's saving us a little bit of money, but we're just using less of the grant in this year. There's a couple of pieces. Interest income is over budget, which is always good because we as well as the debt charges. So we sometimes, you realize how big our capital budget is when our carry forward is $18 million. There's some presumption if vendors happen to be, or contractors are billing us early in the year, we could deplete our bank balance pretty quickly. So I do budget to have some line of credit to get us through to when we can permanently finance. To date, we've been able to manage with our operating funds and our reserves to not have to do that. But every year we have these $20 and $30 million budgets, it's more likely that we're not going to be timing-wise okay, just from a cash flow perspective. So I do like to keep that in there. So that's on near the bottom of the second page where we're 117,000 under budget, but that's just good fortune in that timing of paying contractors hasn't caused us to go into overdraft. You can see that our tax revenue, for example, is $22 million for a year, and we could be paying that out in capital projects in a year until we get permanent financing in place through the province. So just to give you some sense of scope on that and why that's budgeted and usually not used. I think I anticipate about $7 million of debt for half the year or something when I'm at our current rate. So I'm just always trying to project what that could be. And fortunately, we haven't had to use it. We have development permits, which is $68,000 projected to be over budget for the year, which is good. Other than that, on the operating side, I'm happy to answer questions, but those are really kind of some of what's going on the operating side 6 months in.
Questions from council?
And there's certainly detailed notes on any of the values in the variance columns that are highlighted. There are explanations in the written report that I'm not going to read to you this evening. But it's certainly there, and it's in the package for the public as well. The other piece of this report is the capital report. And so that just gives you an idea of where we are to date. In a lot of cases, September 30th is still kind of mid-construction season. So, for example, on the third page down, if you look at the annual maintenance programs, which are our paving ones, you'll see a budget by street, and the actuals appear to be quite low, because as of September 30th, we likely haven't had the paving invoice from the contractor doing that work. So even though a lot of that work may have been done, we just don't always have their invoices at, at the time for this report. So, and that would be the case for a number of projects, but also we're still, like we said, mid-construction season as of September 30th.
Okay, any questions on that? No? Okay, is someone prepared to make a motion to receive second quarter financial reports? Councillor Newell?
I move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater receive the second quarterly financial report for 2025-2026 fiscal year from the Director of Finance, estimated document number 26-005.
Thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor McDonald. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. 11.5, we got the monthly building permit report for November 2025. Again, another busy year in the Town of Bridgewater. Yeah, crazy. And then our last item, second last item, sorry, there's a big gap in the page there. Second last item is tender 25-10E, supply of a new wheel loader, 2025 or newer.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present on the tender 25-10E, which is the new wheel loader. So in this year's capital budget, we budgeted for the replacement of our 1993 loader. That is critical to our snow and ice control operations. We issued the tender in the fall, closed with 4 submissions, which were reviewed per the evaluation committee. The proposal with the highest score was Brandt Tractor, who scored 87.98 points. So staff are recommending the award of the tender of the 2025 or newer loader with automatic greasing, extra counterweight, and the 36-month warranty to Brandt Tractor Limited at a cost of $443,525 net of trade-in, which turns into $460,631.75 net HST. This recommendation is over budget by approximately $60,000, which will require additional debt financing. Open to questions.
I can't get past the 32-year-old wheel loader.
It's one of those, don't make them like they used to.
Yeah,
for sure.
I know that,
but a long time.
But that's a bit of a testament to staff who keep maintaining these vehicles, to have a 32-year-old vehicle just reaching end of life now. Sorry, Councillor Newell.
Yeah, sorry. I was just curious. So Atlantic's bid was, if I did my math right, it was about 20,000 less. But in my granted brief research, they seem pretty comparable units. So what made the recommendation stand out?
In terms of Atlantic Industrial?
Yes.
So in terms of the review of staff, so 70 points goes towards price. So certainly net of trade-in. So a Brandt Tractor would be about $413,000 versus an Atlantic Industrial $493. So there's approximately $20,000 difference, as you said. So there are 30 points towards the specifications, their technical response, qualifications, and references. Unfortunately, for some of them, the bidders, they didn't provide sufficient information when it came to qualifications or references or parts availability or the minimum specifications. So now we're getting into equipment specifications that I'm not as familiar with. So clearance height of the bucket or torque or brake horsepower. So they scored lower in that respect. So it would deemed as yes equivalent, but didn't meet the specs in some cases.
Any other questions? Someone prepared to make a motion? Deputy Mayor?
Move the Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater award tender number 25-10E for the supply of a new wheel loader, 2025 or newer, including an automatic greasing system, extra counterweight, and a 36-month extended warranty as provisional items to Brandt Tractor Limited at a cost of net trade-in of $443,525 plus HST, $460,631.75 net HST.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Conklin. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Oh, you have
I do, sorry,
Yeah,
I do,
okay.
just mostly out of pure curiosity, sorry. Just help me understand, like, what is the, like, the extra counterweight or the automatic greasing system? Like, what value do they provide, given that they're extras are not, like, included in the, I guess, the unit itself?
We are looking at updating our tender specs. So the counterweight was provisional, of course, but it is essential for our snow removal operations to offset the weight of the plow. So for stability and traction, it's really a must-have. It is something that in past practice, we could have maybe sourced aftermarket, but we've had problems with that as well. So if I was doing this again, I probably wouldn't have made it provisional. The automatic grease, that one, of course, is we can either manually grease or have the automatic grease. So it's really a convenience and an efficiency to ensure greasing does happen. But because sometimes if you have to do it manually, it may not happen. So it's really an upkeep of gear.
Okay. All right, we have a mover and seconder. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Very much. Have a good night.
Now down to our last item before we have a few items in our in-camera meeting. Notice, this is just notice of amendment to personnel policy and procedures for procedures manual for pay for temporary assignment.
Right. So I can answer any questions, or we can wait till next meeting to discuss, if you'd like.
Yeah, so again, this is just to give notice to update that for acting pay, if you will. I don't know if people have questions. It's coming back to the next meeting anyway. Okay, good. Can I have a motion to give notice, please? Councillor Newell, thank you.
Sorry, do you want me to? Sorry,
Yes, please. Yep.
As you can tell, the later the evening gets, the more ridiculous we kind of get. So I move that town council for the town of Bridgewater give notice pursuant to section 48 of the Municipal Governance Act that at the January 26, 2026 council meeting, council will consider amendments to the personnel policy and procedures manual with respect to section 7.10 pay for temporary assignment as outlined in document number 26-010 dated December 10th, 2025.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Vergier. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We have an in-camera meeting following this under Section 22(2)C of the Municipal Government Act. Can I please have a motion to adjourn, Councilor? So quick. And Councilor Vergier, we are now adjourned. Thank you.